Yeah, let's get this party started. We have a lot of content to go over, and Nick and Katrina both are talkers and deep thinkers. So I am here today to help rein them in and make sure you guys get all of this amazing content. So first, I wanted to set the stage for everybody. Turnkey is a consulting firm that's been helping nonprofits for about 20 years in strategy. The key area that we address for our clients is growing a suite of revenue sources that allow the organization to focus on the mission and just be more energy and time efficient. We partner with mission-driven organizations to increase your donor reach, spark meaningful conversations, and help with multi-channel fundraising. Nick is a rock star. He's the CEO and founder of GivePanel. He's been helping nonprofits around the world manage their Facebook fundraising and tackle challenges and problems so that you guys can focus on relationships. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. GivePanel started in 2018, has raised over $1 billion for global brands such as UNICEF, Movember, and Greenpeace. And I'm Kate Bullard. I'm your tour guide today, account executive extraordinaire at Turnkey. And I felt like it was important to have this conversation in this way to talk about where we were, where we're going, and everything with Facebook fundraising as a revenue stream. And I have brought in Katrina, my CEO from Turnkey, to help us answer questions and pose different pieces of the conversation from a leadership point of view. We do know that having these conversations with leadership and different people in the organizations can be challenging. So she is here to play devil's advocate and say, whoa, at any point in time, what does this mean to a CEO? And ask those questions. And we hope that will be of help for you. The plan for today, what we want to take you through, it's going to be a wild ride. We're going to talk about the landscape. Nick's going to talk through 9 key findings of his benchmark study. We're going to ask a lot of challenging questions that we are hearing on the ground of different rumors or myths, and I'm going to challenge Nick to defend or myth bust those challenges. And at the end, we're going to give away some actionable takeaways and answer, of course, any questions that come through. So as always, ask questions in the chat, and any conversations that you want to have offline later on are always welcome with any of the 3 of us. We're always happy to chat one-on-one. So with that, we're going to get started with Nick. Can you give us a bit of the landscape of where we were, where we are now?
Sure, Kate. And look, thanks so much for inviting me on this webinar. And hi, everyone. It's great to see you. I've just put my kids to bed here in the UK, so I'm raring to go. The day is just starting for me. No, not really. So yeah, so if we just compare kind of a little bit about what life used to be like kind of pre-Facebook fundraising and then post-Facebook fundraising. So kind of pre-Facebook fundraising for digital marketing, for events, things like that, we're kind of happy, right, with very low conversion rates, right? So we're kind of happy with things like 5% conversion rates from Facebook ads to our event sign up form. Kind of is a good result, which is another way of kind of saying that we're like 95% of people are dropping off, right? And obviously that low conversion rate, right, like actually means that your acquisition cost is higher. Because as we know, if you can double your conversion rate, you get double the results for the same budget. So if you have low conversion rates, essentially your cost per fundraiser, your cost per lead, your cost per whatever is going to be much higher. And then pre-Facebook as well, there were kind of like no network effects. So I kind of call this tumbleweed. And this is like where, you might, your fundraisers might start a fundraising page kind of over on some standalone platform, and then they have to do something with that fundraising page, right? They have to put it into an email or to social media. But when they did so, there really wasn't the kind of interaction, because guess what? Facebook doesn't like people leaving Facebook. And so when you post those links into Facebook, it doesn't really suit the algorithm and the newsfeed. So you get this effect of really not having too much traction with your links in Facebook. And then finally, sorry, not finally, but community and fundraising are kind of separate things. So what we've seen with Facebook is the ability to have community on that same platform, right? So before Facebook, you'd have, maybe your online community would be in one place, but your fundraising would happen in another place. And then finally, honestly, guys, like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, we were spending so much time setting up our own tech, right? Building our, like, hiring platforms, setting them up, having project plans. Like, I remember project plans to implement fundraising platforms, like, right? Like, we don't have that anymore with Facebook, right? So Kate, do you want to kind of expand that so we can see like what happens now? So what we're finding is like 10%, we get 10 times the conversion by keeping the audience engaged where they already are in Facebook, right? So that 5% becomes 50%, which is absolutely phenomenal change. And we do that by keeping people engaged where they already are, right? You don't want people to leave Facebook if you don't have to get them to leave it, because they've chosen to be there. That's where they find it social. That's why they find it engaging. They don't really want to leave and go to some lemonade stand in the desert, which we'll talk about later. They want to be engaged like where they already are, because that's the exciting place. They don't want to go to a static web page. So by keeping them on Facebook and using Facebook's tools, Facebook have got some awesome tools for conversion. We increase it by 10x. And then if you go next, Kate, because we've got a higher conversion rate, guess what? Our acquisition costs become so much lower. So running like things like events on like purely on Facebook means your cost per acquisition is much, much lower than driving people to a separate kind of a separate page. And then the great thing about Facebook, guys, is this social graph. So this, what I mean by social graph is like all the connections between everyone in right on Facebook. So all my friends that I'm connected to on Facebook and their friends is kind of like a spider diagram, and we're all kind of connected. And what happens is with Facebook is it's the first time in history, okay, it's absolutely a game changer, that a peer-to-peer fundraising platform has taken advantage of being natively inside that social graph. And so Facebook have built all sorts of virality so that when I donate to Kate's fundraiser, right, like Kate gets a notification, but all Kate's friends who are also my friends get a notification that I've donated to her fundraiser. And so we get this natural viral effect that you just don't get without Facebook.
Nick, can I ask a stupid CEO question?
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, you guys came to me last year and you said, give me the money to integrate our fundraising platform with Facebook. Why are we talking about this now?
Sorry, just repeat that again.
That's a stupid CEO question. CEOs don't have a great understanding of the fact that this is different from having an integrated with Facebook platform. I get confused when you talk fast.
Right, yeah. So so that's a really, really, really good question. So you've kind of got two flavors of Facebook fundraising that gets talked about, especially in the US, we see with our clients. So in the US, you have a lot of platforms that already exist that have integrated with Facebook, right? But they've integrated with Facebook as a step once your fundraiser has created their Facebook page. So your fundraiser still has to leave Facebook to set up this separate thing that is then integrated with Facebook. And what we're saying is you can skip that step out. You can have it naturally viral without the fundraiser having to leave. And you get all the network effects of the kind of the purest way of doing it on Facebook than essentially, which is kind of like, you know, still a separate Facebook page, but that has then been sort of integrated with Facebook, but not really in a deep way.
Okay, excellent. When I talk to CEOs, they are deeply confused on this point.
That is a really, you're right, it is really quite confusing, and we need to kind of come up with better ways of explaining the difference.
Well, I didn't say it was really confusing. I said they were really confused.
Well, I think it is confusing. Like, it is confusing. And also, Katrina, one major point is just because your fundraising system is integrated with Facebook does not mean your supporters aren't just going to set up directly on Facebook anyway. So Correct. You still have this issue of having this separate thing anyway. So yeah.
And the thing you said, you know, when we walked through this deck that last week, that was really intriguing to me was you said that there is no tumbleweed effect when I use the link from the traditional platform in Facebook.
So when I take when I like go to a standalone platform, and then as a fundraiser, I need to kind of ask my friends and family to do it, I'm going to paste it into Facebook. But because it's not a native Facebook fundraiser, it's not going to get the traction. Okay.
That was, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Facebook hate people leaving Facebook. And so they've developed fundraising to keep on the platform. So everything about Facebook fundraising keeps people on the platform, which is the main reason they've developed it, is to engage their users. And it turns out that fundraising is a great way for Facebook to engage their users. So they've caught on to something that we as nonprofits already know, which is fundraising is really, really powerful for that kind of engagement for them. And so, yeah, so to carry on, fundraising, what we've seen is that fundraising can now be done as a community. So your online community, for example, in Facebook groups, and the fundraising can be much closer together. And you'll see this kind of in the results of our benchmark study, that one of the really powerful things is how Facebook groups and Facebook fundraising are much, much closer together. Because why would you want to, if you've got people in a community in Facebook, why would you want to send them away from Facebook to do something? Again, it just becomes much more convenient for them to set it up in Facebook. And finally, no project plan needed, right? With Facebook fundraising tools, once they're set up, Facebook have the best user experience designers in the world. They make sure that Facebook is hosted and is served 100% of the time. Like, they've just got the best technology in the world. There's no setup cost. There's no charge to use the platform. There's 0% transaction fees on credit cards and stuff like that. So it's so much easier to launch campaigns on Facebook than, building that technology that we used to do a few years ago.
All right. I think we've laid a really good landscape for everybody. So really quickly, I want to talk about, get nerdy and talk about how the benchmark study was put together. So Give Panel worked with Think Consulting, and the report focuses on the following fundraising activities that take place on Facebook: the birthday fundraisers, non-birthday/event fundraisers, which is a whole new world to us, in memory and tribute fundraisers, and donate button posts. Donate button posts are kind of the redheaded stepchild in this conversation, so we will cover that, but it'll be a light touch. Oh, sorry. And before we jump in, what I wanted to highlight quickly is that this does not include fundraisers that were registering from a platform and coming through. So Katrina already jumped ahead of the game on that. This is really people who are starting on Facebook. There are
this actually, sorry, Kate, this does include fundraisers from other platforms too.
Okay, so it would include if somebody registered and they had a platform that's integrated with Facebook, it counts their Facebook fundraising in.
Right, yeah, because at Give Panel, we suck in all of the fundraisers, whether they come from different platforms. So it is including what's called API fundraisers in here too.
Got it. And as everybody here probably knows, the people who, if you are coming from the platform, those people are still incredibly outperforming people who don't integrate with their Facebook at all. So once they register and they say connect to Facebook, they're fundraising 3 times as much easily. So you can accidentally set up a fundraiser on Facebook and raise money. I personally have done it. So what we wanted to also talk about is this is the largest study that's been done on Facebook besides Facebook's aggregate proprietary data that they have released. So thousands of fundraisers, 150 organizations. So this is a lot of data, meta-analysis that we're talking about here. So wanted to set that stage. So we're going to go into the 9 key findings. The challenge for my wonderful panelists on this is to go through these as quickly as we can, and let's put questions in at the end so that we can get through this content. Everybody cheer for them with me. So here we go. You guys ready?
Yeah.
So first up, we've got Facebook fundraising grew 70% year over year in a year that traditional peer-to-peer fundraising was down 40%. And one of the really fascinating pieces about this is, there are organizations out there like Amazon and Tesla that are not increasing at 70% rates. And I'd like to open up that dialogue a little bit with Nick and Katrina on what this means to you.
So I think the temptation from the audiences and the clients I speak with is to say, oh, well, yeah, that was just because of the pandemic. This is purely a pandemic-driven stat. And I don't think that's true. Nick, what do you think?
No, I agree. If you look at the curve of Facebook since they launched that graph where it curves, it's been exponential. So it completely maps the direction it was going anyway. Mm-hmm. So what we've seen since 2016 is that that exponential growth of Facebook fundraising, and it's the line's getting steeper. I think, it's possible that COVID accelerated that, but as we saw from Blackboard study that said that other digital peer-to-peer, right, was down 40%. Like that doesn't chime like it should. That doesn't work for me. Like it should be down because of COVID, not up if the rest of the peer-to-peer is down. Doesn't chime like it should. That doesn't work for me. Like it should be down because of COVID, not up if the rest of the peer-to-peer is down, right?
But would you, do you think that the Facebook challenges in specific took on some of the people who weren't fundraising for the traditionals? And is that true or false based on what you see in your data?
I think what happened more than anything was that if anything is to help us understand it, Facebook did have some real peaks during COVID, right? So like I interviewed Facebook for an event that we did, and Anita from Facebook was basically saying that they'd experienced huge kind of much more adoption, much more usage during COVID. So people flocked to their screens, to this device when they're locked down at home, right? Like, what are you going to do? You're a bit bored, whatever. You're spending more time online, more time on social media. So that would explain to me why traditional peer-to-peer was kind of down and Facebook was up, not just because of events, but because, we saw an increase in birthday fundraising, we saw an increase in lots of different kinds of fundraising. In memory and tribute fundraising was a big one, partly because probably people couldn't go to funerals, so they wanted to kind of donate to those kind of things. But I think it was just generally like people gravitated to social media during the pandemic. It was already on the increase, but like it was accelerated by that.
Kate's going, don't you ask another question? I know that's what you're thinking, Kate, but I got to ask this question. And the question is, does the donor or the fundraiser data that you saw indicate that these are new fundraisers in the same percentages as pre-pandemic? Are we still drawing new audiences?
So of the data that we are seeing, yes, it's pretty much, I don't want to say all new, but like we've got around like 85-90% of the data that we see when clients try and kind of do a thing into their database. It's looking at like 85% and 90% new to the, not necessarily new to the organization in terms of they might be like fringe audiences, but the data is not on the database, right?
Got it. All right, Kate, shutting up.
Well, I think that you guys already kind of encapsulated this one, which is the disruption that's happening with traditional online fundraising. So I do think we can actually move past this point because you guys have already dug into that.
Well, I think just one interesting thing is that, Just Giving from Blackboard has been going since I think 2020. So 20 years, right? It's raised $4.5 billion. Facebook has already raised more than that. And it's only four years old. So it feels to me as though social fundraising is disrupting traditional fundraising. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
Here's what we're not addressing today is that feeling of anxiety about all this happening on Facebook over which we have little to no control. That's another webinar. We'll bring in a psychologist for that. Go ahead.
No, that's actually in the challenges section later.
Okay, all right, shutting up.
It also plays out in the data later about how you can get more control, because that's what we exist to do, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. All right, Facebook is expanding from just being birthdays to being events as well.
So this was a big finding. This is probably the biggest finding of the study, was that, when we first started our first year, we saw so much around birthday fundraising. And that was the thing that Facebook was known for, right? Was like, you turn on the tap and you start to get birthday fundraisers. And that is still true. So birthday fundraising is holding up. It's holding up. Some organizations are up, some are down, but it's holding. And really, there's not a lot you can do to influence it. But what we found is this new model of events that we've adopted with our clients really has driven a huge amount more fundraisers for non-birthdays, so for events. And not just more fundraisers. So now a third of all the fundraisers on Give Panel this year were not from birthdays, but from events. And then over half the income as well. So not just more fundraisers, but more valuable fundraisers too. So we've seen this shift, I think. Birthdays, great use case, we'll have the income, brilliant, it's there. now what else can Facebook fundraising do? Question mark. Well, now it can do something else that scales, that is big, that really the sky's the limit on.
And Nick, we talked about this briefly. Do you see an opportunity for event-driven series to align a Facebook group as opposed to a Facebook page? What's the difference there, and what opportunity have we not yet explored?
Yeah, so these events that we're seeing, that we're kind of pushing on our platform, are very much based around having people coming together to have an experience for a charity. We call them Facebook challenges, and we pioneered these in the UK, and we're kind of rolling them out in the US. And what they do is they get people together like a sports team for the organization to do a challenge, a fitness challenge, a distance challenge, all in a group. And that group is a hyper engaged group. So these communities happen in Facebook groups. You can't really have real community on a Facebook page. So it's really important that you gather these people to do these things in a really hyper engaged community. So they're doing it together, because we all know connection is what people want, right? Especially during the pandemic. So we got these people together. They're doing something, all achieving the same thing, like a sports team for their organization. That can't happen on a page. You have to have a separate standalone, like separate specific Facebook group to make it work. So pretty much all of these events that have driven this income are based on doing Facebook group fundraising for events really, really well.
And do you see any opportunity for example, a traditional series like JDRF One Walk, to use as an example, to align a Facebook group with each event like we used to do with
Absolutely.
Facebook?
It depends though on the event you're talking about. So if that event, there's a few things that really, really work around Facebook events and groups. There's no point in really gathering people into a community just for one day. So it depends on you. So what we've been having success with is month-long challenges, and being able to have people there that aren't having to meet in real life. So they're remote. So you've got thousands of people. Like we've had people like over 30,000 people in a Facebook group doing fundraising for an organization for an event. And so you can really scale it but yes, you can back onto an existing event, but there's just a few things about Facebook challenges that you'd want to learn about to really get the most ROI out of it.
Got it. Fantastic. Quick question from Sheena in the chat. In this study, the non-birthday and event fundraising category does include the integrated fundraisers. Yes, no?
Yes, it does.
Okay, just wanted to double check that.
Those integrated fundraisers are quite a small data set within it though.
And that might have been because of the confusion and going hybrid and how everybody's numbers kind of went down. What we saw was retention was great, but new acquisition was low, and the people who were retained performed really, really well in the traditional peer-to-peer model. So yes, Sheena, to answer your question, those folks are in here. So next slide. Birthday fundraisers don't have exaggerated peaks. It trends out evenly throughout the year, and you can strategize around this consistency.
Yeah, I think the thing that I was surprised, I expected there to be more seasonality around birthday fundraisers to show up in the data. Especially, I've always been told September is the birthday month, and we can all work out why that might be. But we didn't see that, and I think what we've seen is that actually it's quite stable birthday income. And then what you might do is when you do an event or you have an awareness month, you might find a peak for yourself. So you can see there might be a little kind of increase there in May and October. And that's because actually mental health organizations have awareness months in that month, and they're quite a big subset of the data. So you can see that pushing through a little bit. But generally speaking, we saw actually not too much seasonality around birthdays, and birthday fundraising holding its income. So there wasn't a great deal of change between 2019-20. There's this big thing, oh, birthday fundraising is going away. Like, it's pretty stable, to be honest with you. I think the thing to add to that, Kate, is what we found is you can't just rely on birthday fundraising with Facebook. So if you want more Facebook fundraisers, there's other ways to get more Facebook fundraisers. And birthday fundraising isn't the thing that's you're going to be able to grow, but you are going to be able to grow other things.
Yes. Okay. And we got a question from Caitlin. Hey, Caitlin. So how are you able to distinguish memorial and tribute fundraisers on the back end and reporting if there's not a donation type in the Facebook transaction report? The Facebook transaction report, as we all know, is very finicky and challenging to use. And part of that we'll get to later on when Nick talks about that data collection piece that they're seeing at GivePanel. So part of that is the tool functionality as well. So
Yeah,
we will cover that in a bit.
Yeah, so that's part of our functionality is we have some cool stuff that it's not 100% perfect, but it allows us to kind of label certain fundraising types, basically.
All right. The average amount raised per fundraiser increased by type.
Yeah, so this is across the board. So an average of 63% increase. So this is great to see. And again, like, why should the average be up year on year? Like, I would expect as more people adopt it, maybe the averages go down as more people kind of are asked to give, but we saw the opposite. So birthday fundraising up 21%. We saw the US market actually be the highest average birthday fundraisers came from the US market. So if you want to download this report, there's a lot more information you can get. And we do a country breakdown. So our US nonprofit customers got the highest average values for birthday fundraising. 84%, I mean, just in memory tribute fundraising, huge on Facebook, really high average gift. And we think, again, that's the dynamic probably of not being able to go to the funeral, perhaps, that kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to see if how that trend continues. I expect the average might come down a little bit next year. And then these event fundraisers being really kind of really nice high average values, much higher average values than birthday fundraising, because the person is doing 100 miles in a month or whatever it might be, right? Doing 10,000 steps a day for 30 days, that kind of thing. So we're getting we had a client, for example, that got over $400 average gift value for a push-up challenge for people doing push-ups. So quite interesting that we're getting quite high average values on Facebook. And Facebook have done a great job at that, making sure the amount coming through, the average donation amount coming through, is really high through testing. So you see that they do all this testing for you as a nonprofit that you don't even have to do, because they're constantly testing those amounts and how people do.
Facebook thinks I have a lot more money than I actually have.
Right. Me too.
It's aggressive with my donation amounts.
Yeah. And like, I think when it first started, it was like $10 prompt or something, and now it's like a $40 prompt. So they've really, like, they don't have to do that, right? But they don't have to do that, but like they've actually tested it so that it's raising more for you for nonprofits. So that's something you get just by signing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was donating to Otis, Katrina's psychologist and husband in the house. It was like $75 was the recommended amount. I was like, sorry, Otis, it's not happening today, bud.
That's donated. It's 40, we say quid. It's 40 quid in the UK, 40 pounds. So yeah, that's a nice, so that's probably why it's such a high average value gift in the US. You came out top probably because of that. So they've been doing some work there, which is great.
And this one is actually one of my favorite key findings, is that you're also getting double the number of donations for birthday fundraisers. So I think what we are seeing in the traditional peer-to-peer model is fewer donors, but higher donation amounts. And I feel like this is really pushing it. It's really crowdfunding more at scale, that you're getting double the number of donations of birthday fundraisers.
Right. Yeah. And you can see here, if you look carefully at the US data point there, it's only 3.95, right? And that's because we haven't rolled out this style of events to the US fully yet. So we have rolled it out in the UK and Ireland. So you can see these events that are working really well in the UK and Ireland, they're kind of getting average donations per fundraiser of like 10, 11, 12. And it's not uncommon for fundraisers to get hundreds of donations, the top ones, right? So you have this kind of very much this long tail where some fundraisers are getting, loads of donations, and then a lot of people are getting 1 or 2 donations. But so this comes back to that virality concept. And if people really care about pushing their fundraisers for events, then they're going to get a lot of donations. So it's really exciting. So we want to see these events coming to the US and see this number to grow next year.
All right, next would be, it pays to give thanks. When the organization thanks the fundraiser, an average of 23% more is raised.
Right. So I think this goes back to some of the things you were saying, Katrina, around control, right? So one of the things that we have to do on Facebook is kind of a new paradigm. And one of the things we have to do if we want to thank every fundraiser that comes through Facebook is we can like message them. Essentially, we can post on their page and kind of have that human to human interaction with them, which is great from a fundraising point of view, but does take time. But what it's great to know is we measured, okay, all the fundraisers who were thanked versus all the fundraisers that weren't thanked, and 20 thanking basically increased the average gift by 23%. So that is $30 extra, $40 extra in for just saying thank you, which is the right thing to do anyway.
Yeah.
So you can outsource thanking on Facebook for about $2 a fundraiser at the most. That's like what we charge our like top clients. You can do it for cheaper than that probably, and you get $30, $40 back. The return on investment for just saying thank you is absolutely massive. We knew this, but like it was great to see it play out in the data.
So Nick, when you say thank you, how are you doing that? Are you doing that in the group publicly to other people, as you know, so that people can see themselves being thanked, or are you doing it privately in Messenger?
So what we're doing is we're doing it on their fundraising page. So it's public, but they get we do it in a way that they get a notification. That's the key. So they get a notification that we've thanked them in Facebook, which is absolutely massive. So notifications, as you know, they're kind of almost like mini text messages within Facebook. So they get really high notifications, get very high open rates. So you want to do it in a way which is public. So it means that your brand has kind of legitimized the fundraiser. So like now all the friends and family know that this is like a real thing. It's not a scam. And the fundraiser gets a notification and they can come and see your thank you. And that's the way that we've pioneered it and we do it. And although it's kind of still one by one with a fundraiser, we've developed some tools that make it really much quicker and much easier to track who you've thanked, who you haven't. Because doing it through Facebook is possible, but it can be even more time consuming. We think we cut the time down by about half.
Wow. You know, that is so psychologically heavy, being thanked for doing a good thing in front of your peer group. It is just incredibly powerful.
And we make the thanks really short, really personal. No corporate image that goes with it. It's just literally like, it's like, hi, Katrina, you're awesome. Thank you so much for setting up this birthday fundraiser. If it's in memory of someone, we actually drop in a message that says, in memory of your dad, you know, that kind of thing. And then we sign off from a person at an organization with a kind of phone number and email address. And it just feels so personal. And that's like, we've A/B tested so many messages. We've tested so many that we know what gives the best kind of return.
Love it. Love it. That's very powerful.
Yes, thank you for talking about the ROI as well. CEO Katrina was very happy to hear the numbers on that front. So number 8 of the key findings, short and sweet, the donate button posts are up 110%, raising an average of $70 each. Nick, in 2 sentences, can you explain what the donate button posts are and how they're different?
Right. So this is added confusion for people, unfortunately. So someone can set up a fundraiser for you, which is like a fundraising page on Facebook. They can also just post onto their newsfeed and add a donate button that goes to your organization. And so we call those donate button posts. And what we're able to do in Give Panel, using kind of some of our data stuff, is we're able to surface those differently to fundraising pages, so you can see them differently. And what's interesting is they don't have a time limit. So fundraisers run out. Donate button posts, we have some donate button posts that are still going now because someone comments on the post and it comes back up to the top of the newsfeed, and then it's like, still gets donations. So they kind of last forever. And yeah, what's amazing is they've doubled this year. So they're around 10% of our clients' income. So around 10% of your Facebook income comes from this. But the fact that they've doubled, I think, is really interesting, as people have figured out, maybe I don't want to start a whole fundraiser, but I can just add a donate button, and they figured out how to use that feature in Facebook. It's not an obvious feature that people know how to use, but I think Facebook haven't even pushed it much, but as they push it over time. And interestingly, just one added thing is what Facebook have done is, if you type some words in a post and some of them are keywords, they will suggest that you add the donate button. So if you use the word charity, nonprofit, fundraise, whatever, they can add the donate button. So they can really push that. So if you mention Earth Day in your post, they could push, hey, why not add a donate button for Earth Day? So this is just the beginning of donate button posts being quite interesting, I think.
All right. And lastly, it's possible to capture significant fundraiser data. Lifetime value is still to be determined.
Right. Well, I've got a little bit of information on some value here, maybe not lifetime, but what we see is that, look, people have started a fundraiser for your organization. And one of the biggest things you want to do if you're a fundraiser is like within a nonprofit is get their information, right? Because you're going to want to build a relationship with this person who has decided to do something for your nonprofit. And so what we find is we can by thanking people and doing some data capture at the same time, we can get kind of 30, 40, 50% of people's organic birthday fundraisers, right? But when it comes to, and that's even higher with the average value fundraisers, like the in-mem fundraisers that can go, so it's not uncommon for a client for us to look at their month and have the top 25 fundraisers and have 23, 24 of them have actually given the data on GivePanel. So those most important fundraisers, you're getting even higher percentages of data. So this concept of you can't get all the data from your fundraisers on Facebook isn't true. You can get a lot of data, and you can get a lot of data for the most important fundraisers too. But with events in Facebook groups, what we've managed to do is actually get all of their data before they do the event. So what we've done is done a system where it's like, come into the group, do this event, register for a t-shirt, then start your Facebook fundraiser. So we have tools, Facebook group tools that allow you to get the data before people start your Facebook fundraiser. And that way we can get overall a significant amount of valuable fundraiser data, which means you can put it on your CRM. You can start to do supporter journey stuff. And that gets really exciting.
And Nick, from the CEO perspective, you know, I 92% looks great, but I get 100% on my platform, and my CEOs seem hyper-focused on that missing 8%. Can you address why it's not that important? And in fact, if you were able to get no data, would this still be worth doing? Like, we're in an environment, the data capture is to take them out of the environment.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it depends on the type of fundraising. So would it be worth doing? So birthday fundraisers are probably not going to be giving you money if they didn't do a birthday fundraiser, right? So I think that's clearly, you should be like taking advantage of as many birthday fundraisers, even if you can't get their data, right? Because it's kind of free money. You can say thank you, you can still have a relationship, you can still acknowledge that person. You can't kind of necessarily track all their data. So I think, yes, you would still do it even if you couldn't get the data, but getting 30, 40, 50% of the data is still really good, right? With events, let's say you did events on your other platform, depending on, you know, things like opt-in rates, you might actually find you get more data this way through Facebook because you're engaging a much larger chunk of people, right? So that 100% might be 100% of a smaller number.
True. And, you know, I'm thinking about the way teams register on traditional platforms, and some platforms that one email address stand for 15 people. So you really don't have any data for those people. Let me ask another question. You know, a lot of our CEOs break out in a rash because we're not getting, well, we're getting virtually no donor data. Tell me why I shouldn't care.
Yeah. So I think like, from my perspective, most people giving to Facebook fundraisers are friends and family of the fundraiser. They're not necessarily supporters of the organization. So if you were to take all of the people who donated to your fundraisers, put them on your CRM system, and then see what their lifetime value is, it would be extremely low. It might not even pay for the money that like it costs to host them on your CRM and the amount of communication you've got to do with them, right? Because I'm supporting my friend, I'm not supporting the organization. So I'm okay with the lack of donor data. First of all, anyone that wants to hear from you gets the opportunity to say yes on Facebook. So about 3% of people do say yes. So that shows you straight away that that's not a great audience for you, right? So here's a contrast. Out of all the donors to Facebook fundraisers, less than 3% want to be on your email list. So that shows you they're not great supporters. Contrast that with the fundraisers themselves, especially the birthday ones. We had a client do a recent test where we got the phone numbers for a large amount of their birthday fundraisers using our platform, and they called them up for a regular donation, monthly donation ask. Okay, so like sustainer ask. It was the birthday fundraisers were the top performing segment out of all the segments that they telephoned in terms of response. And they were also the top performing segment in terms of the amount of the average gift that they gave, which was around $130 a year. So over $10 a month. So they were like, oh my goodness, these birthday fundraisers are like really, really good supporters. But the donors of those birthday fundraisers, honestly, you're going to waste your time with them. And so it's okay to drop them. And I think that is that's a mindset shift that you have to have. Is focus on the super supporters, or the ones that really are your supporters, not the fundraisers. And interestingly, in the early days, we actually messaged to say thank you to each donor on every fundraiser page. And do you know what the reaction of the fundraiser was? The reaction of the fundraiser was, stay away from my donors.
Yes.
Stop.
I've never heard that before.
Stop freaking them out. Stop, like, you're kind of like, you're trying to go after, like, my friends and family don't want to hear from you, right? Stop being creepy.
Yeah,
so
we've seen that also in traditional platforms.
So quick question. Lindsay put in the chat, how do we know who's fundraising for us? Right now, we don't see that information. We only know when they reach out separately to the organization. When we receive info from Facebook, it's aggregate. So we don't really know how much each individual raised. The individual often seems confused and often aren't sure how much they raised either.
So this is what our platform exists to do. So grab a demo. We basically allow you to take your Facebook report, we break it down, we rebuild it in a way that makes sense for you, like a kind of mini CRM for Facebook fundraising. And we help you do that supporter journey. We help you track all your fundraisers. We help you see all your donors too. You only get like data for a limited amount of them, as Katrina was saying. But yeah, that's what our platform exists to do. So grab a free demo with our team. And yeah, we know that problem. That problem does exist, that exact problem, which is why we created the tool.
All right, so we are at the 15 minutes left mark. So this is going to be a blitz for getting through some common problems and challenges that we hear daily when talking with organizations about this. Katrina hit on one, which is no donor data. What does that even mean? Is that even important? So I will go next. We have no Facebook followers.
Right. So you should pull the benchmark report. We did this. We did a study where we mapped success versus Facebook likes, and we didn't find an exact causal relationship with the more, like, it doesn't equate. The more likes you have, the more income you get. We have some very small clients who have got hardly any likes, who have done an event on Facebook and raised a huge amount of money compared to their likes. So I think likes are kind of like, likes don't mean as much as they used to on Facebook because of the advertising platform. You can now go and reach, you know, in the case of the US, hundreds of millions of people without them liking your page. So don't get waylaid by like, oh, my page engagement is low, my likes are low. It doesn't really matter that much anymore.
Nick, I have two follow-on questions.
One quick question before Katrina, you jump in. I would like to encourage everybody in the chat, if you have a challenge, to pop it in now. We'll get to it. Katrina, go.
So, Nick, for the organizations who didn't have a bunch of people who liked their page, how did you reach out to supporters? Did you do it primarily through Facebook or through other means?
With Facebook ads.
Facebook ads.
So, yeah, Facebook ads only. It's the simple, cheapest, easiest way. And guess what? When you attract people on Facebook, they're already on Facebook. So you know that they can use fundraising. You know that they can use Facebook groups. So you combine these tools, Facebook ads, Facebook groups, Facebook fundraisers, and you need a page to do this, but you don't need that many likes. Now, all I'll say is what we have found is brand is important. So if you haven't got many likes because your brand is really misunderstood, then it's actually your brand that is the problem, not the likes. So what you need to do is analyze your brand and think, can people understand my brand from like reading it? Can they like, have we got an easy to understand brand? Because we find that that's when you really suffer. And I can think of some great organizational things where it's like, you don't know what they do because the name doesn't tell you what they do.
And to prove the point, Nick has actually turned us down. We've brought clients to Nick to say, you know, they want in, and he's like, yeah, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We actually had a very well-known UK organization change their brand today, a cancer brand that now we know they're going to make so much on Facebook because they've simplified it and you can now understand what they are, and they've rebranded, not just because of us, but it's gonna, like, we're so happy for them because we know it's just going to be massive for them on Facebook. So if you've got low likes because you've got a brand that makes no sense to anyone, then that's something you need to fix. Don't just fix it for fundraising, fix it for all of your communications that you do.
So technical question, let's say I say, yep, you're right, I need to fix my brand. What's the level of difficulty in getting your name and brand name changed on Facebook as a nonprofit?
Yeah, it's significant. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just didn't want to raise any false hopes.
No, I think yeah, it's significant. You might have to start new pages. You might have to change names. Like it's not easy. And sometimes just starting again from scratch can actually be like the best strategy sometimes.
Got it.
All right, so another challenge would be we don't have the staff bandwidth to thank the fundraisers or ability to read the Facebook report in order to know who to thank.
Yeah, so that's why you need a tool like GivePanel. That second bit, you know, you can't just, like, the Facebook report is like guys, we used to do this manually before we built GivePanel, so we know how painful it is wrestling with that report. Like, it's just not worth it. But like GivePanel starts at like $49 a month. Like, you know, if you're small, you can start for hardly anything. It's worth it. And then because don't forget, like, every fundraiser is worth another $40 just by thanking them. So like GivePanel pays for itself from that perspective. In terms of the first bit of the question though, Kate, you asked, which is we don't have the time. So that can be a problem. Now, if you're big and you've got thousands of fundraisers and it's going to take you a long time, you can outsource that. You can outsource that to us. We can refer you to some partners where you just like, you create the message, you know what it is, but they do it on your behalf. That is becoming more of a thing as an ecosystem builds around Facebook fundraising. And there is a return on investment for that, because every time you thank someone and get their data, there's lifetime value there. If you're small and you're getting, say, under 50 fundraisers a month, know that you should be able to do 50 fundraisers in way less than an hour, like 45 minutes, like a minute each for a fundraiser. So if you're getting 30 fundraisers a month, it takes you half an hour. It's really not that big a deal. If you're getting 100 fundraisers a month, it might take you maximum half an hour a week. So really, either you're big and you outsource it, or small and it doesn't take that much time. So it's really, the time thing is not that much of a problem to solve.
And to clarify, Nick, your organization, you guys are not ad buy specialists, correct? Many of your clients do that in-house.
Yeah, I happen to have that background, but the company doesn't do that. Yeah, we work with amazing partners when it comes to Facebook ads.
And my understanding, or the way I've seen you work, is that you also work with internal resources to help them succeed at same.
Right. So we have something called the GivePanel Academy. You're right, where we coach people. You're right. We do coach people how to do Facebook ads for Facebook challenges and Facebook events. So you're right. We do coach people on that. We just don't do the ads for them. They still have to do it themselves, but we hold their hand through every step of kind of setting it up. But so many of our organizations will still use a kind of a supplier to do their Facebook ads. But actually, it's becoming more and more common for nonprofits to do Facebook ads and everything in-house now. And we see that they get really good results doing it in-house. If someone is willing to learn and has got a little bit of time, we can coach them how to do Facebook ads, no problem.
Love that. Kate, you got some questions in the chat?
Yep. Yes. So one question from Angel. Well, we're about to pilot this kind of fundraising. Our first Facebook post will go up tomorrow. Right now, messaging is basically, we need your help. Will you set up a Facebook fundraiser in support of us? This is not the exact content. She wants to make sure. But this is the gist. Is that okay? I'm stressing it's new. So any words of wisdom to help Angel out with knowing the first steps that she's taking? Or he, I don't know. Angel could be a man. Yeah.
So that particular way of doing it on a post is not going to produce any meaningful results. Just being honest. What you have to do is create something really compelling that people want to be part of, that they want to do for themselves. So it's not about supporting you, it's about them helping themselves. Like, we're all selfish, we're all the hero of our own story, come on, right? So like the simplest thing would be to say, okay, what date are we? Okay, you're the 26th of May. So what I would do is say something like, hey guys, we're gonna do a challenge in June in this Facebook group, and we're going to do 10,000 steps a day. Could you do 10,000 steps a day for us in June? Come to our Facebook group, link up to the Facebook group, make that Facebook group an amazing place to be in there with them, do the challenge with them, start a Facebook fundraiser, get everyone who comes into that group to start a Facebook fundraiser, maybe offer them something if you can, like a t-shirt for doing it. and do it that way. That's the simplest way to do it. And I know, look, some of our clients have raised millions of dollars, like $3 million on these challenges, but I spent 10 minutes on a phone call with a local organization with me that shouldn't struggle to raise money, like a youth charity organization, like doesn't normally do well on Facebook. They enacted that strategy I just said, and they raised $15,000, 10,000 pounds in a month, which for them was absolutely massive. And to do that, you only need like, you know, to raise $10,000, $15,000 at 150 fundraisers each. There's only 100 people in your group, right? So just get people in your group that know your charity, just get them in the group to do the challenge. And that's the easiest hack I can give to raise some money. But make it compelling. What is that thing? Do they want to walk? Do they want to get fit? What do they want to do in that month? Give them a challenge that they quite fancy doing. People do funny challenges right now at home, right? Sit-ups, press-ups. They do challenges anyway. So just hook into something that they want to do.
All right, we got 2 questions in the Q&A section. I want to make sure we hit them, and then we're going to go over the actionable takeaways, and we'll continue to answer questions that come in as time allows. So Facebook donations and gift aid, we need to claim this manually or another way? You guys have any input on that?
Manually, but from a gift aid, the gift aid is a UK thing. We have, you know, report. You can use GivePanel to report on that or do the reports yourself, but it's manual. Yeah.
Okay. Nick, do you do a managed service for thanking, data capture, and
yes,
pipeline to TM for birthday fundraisers? We can manage the events easily enough, but definitely need help with birthdays. They always slip below the radar. The answer is yes to that. You guys do provide, that is what your tool is for. Yes. All right. And then for Facebook group challenges, what is the typical amount of time needed for one staff person to take this on start to finish?
So if it's one person, you would need to be full-time on a Facebook challenge if it's one person, because there's a lot to do with the group management. When you drive people into the group, you've got to be there. So, you know, I don't want to say like, this isn't a way of just printing money without doing any work. You have to do quite a lot of work. So if it's one person, you know, when people are in a community that are really engaged doing your challenge, they don't have a work cutoff. So they're going to be there evenings, they're going to be there weekends. So really what you want to do is have at least one point person that is kind of full time. And then you want to have 2 or 3 volunteers or staff members that just a few hours a week that can input into it and help you. Don't do it. If you're just one person, you know, it's a lot on one person.
Yep. All right. And last question before we go to the key takeaways. Do you have data about Gen Z on Facebook? Is this generation migrating more to TikTok and or Instagram? Nick, this is one of your favorite topics. Ready to go.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm an old, like, you know, what was I saying before? Like, it's like, I remember 10 years ago when people were saying it was only young people were on Facebook, right? Like, and now it's like only older people are on Facebook, and it's like, it's so different, and it's changed so quickly. But what we're really seeing, and what's really exciting, is Instagram fundraising really taking off. And I'm super excited about that. We just had our first client hit $600,000 on an Instagram fundraiser. So that's the top fundraiser we've seen, 600,000 on one fundraiser on Instagram. So it's starting to become something that's really exciting. I believe Instagram attracts a slightly different audience than Facebook. And so that's interesting. I like to say everyone is on Facebook, just not every demographic is on Facebook that you can reach, but not every person is on Facebook. So you can still reach, you know, people as, you know, as young as 18 on Facebook ads really quite easily. And they're still there. They just use it slightly to kind of in a slightly different way. But not all of them are on there, but you can target that demographic at a scalable point to produce fundraising.
Yeah.
So Facebook is still the #1 and it's the easiest and cheapest, but Instagram is really exciting. And I think you'll see a slightly younger demographic and a slightly more influencer creator style of fundraising than what we've seen on Facebook. Yep.
All right. So some actionable takeaways, everybody. Sign up and turn on the Facebook button. I know this sounds really obvious, but we do have people that say that is a challenge for them. For example, if you have a PO box for your nonprofit, Facebook will not allow you to turn on Facebook fundraising. And that's really unfortunate, especially given how remote we all are these days. Figure out the data. That Facebook report is just a bear. It's really difficult. So pull in a Nick, or there are other partners in the industry I can connect you with to help you interpret the report in different ways. There are lots of different ways to do that. Develop a supporter journey. So based on those different events, birthdays, tribute, donate button posts, coming through the platform, think about what that journey could look like and what the true value might be down the road with the data that you collect. Pilot a Facebook challenge, start small and scale. I know a lot of people who are in the chat have already done this and have some big wins or some big bruises based on it. And it's a launch and learn type of a process. And we're happy to work with you guys on those new initiatives. If you guys want to diversify your portfolio, I mean, a lot of people in the industry are looking to diversify and decrease some reliance on in-person events, even as the world is opening back up again. So I don't see it going away. We highly recommend you still pursue this revenue stream. Keep investing in social channels. And again, the donate button posts can be used to your advantage as well. Any last questions and Q&A chats coming through? Is Amy in? One quick thing, if Amy W is on this, I'd love for you to put in the chat what happened when you turned on Facebook fundraising, if you can share that with us.
I have a question for Nick.
Yep.
Nick, I'm in talking with my peers who are leading companies who are serving the nonprofit industry. At least one of my peers has said, you know what, we're out. We are not investing in any tools to support Facebook fundraising anymore because we just are afraid of what Facebook's going to do to us. Some nonprofit leadership feels the same way. You know, how can we invest in this thing? How do we budget for it when, with the flip of a switch, it feels like they can turn off the faucet after our investment's made, after we've staffed, after we've reorged in order to accommodate this new channel. What do you say to those folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big deal, right? I agree with it, but I look at it slightly differently. So there is platform risk. So we call it platform risk. Mm-hmm. And I know the company you're talking about that I talked to her. And so what we do is we say, look, it's working right now. Facebook is working right now. It's making millions of dollars for our clients. We're not going to lose that opportunity. We're going to maximize that opportunity. And I've been in digital fundraising for 20 odd years. I know how this stuff works, right? Like 15 years. So what happens is it comes in waves. And there's always something else. There's always a new thing. So what we're doing is we're fundraising for 2020, 2021, 2022, and we're going to use Facebook to generate the most amount of revenue. And if you look at kind of the portfolio of our clients, Facebook is up there at the top in terms of return on investment, scalability, new supporter acquisition. So it's number one. You can't just ignore it because of potential platform risk. You have to make the now work. But you need to do it in a way that you can take those supporters and give them a multi-channel supporter journey off Facebook. So we believe in something called Beyond Facebook. We're launching a paper about this soon. We don't believe you should try and keep everyone on Facebook forever. We believe you should use Facebook for acquisition, use it to run amazing events, use it to generate tons of money, but don't let them keep all the people on Facebook. Take them off Facebook, develop a multi-channel supporter journey. This is one reason we don't use Facebook Messenger, which is the tool that the person you're talking about actually stopped developing, because Facebook Messenger, they changed lots of things. Facebook did disrupt that model. So what we do is we use the best parts of Facebook, but we are fundraisers, so we have an eye on that multi-channel. So we are beyond Facebook. That's the way we look at it.
Do you have any advice for people who are having to put forth budget numbers? Any safety measures that you would?
Budget numbers, gosh, that's a big one. I would right now, I would kind of plan for two things on Facebook. I'd plan on any Facebook challenges you're going to do and test, because they're still the most high return on investment, most scalable, most new support acquisition events you can run at the top of any portfolio. So you'd plan in your Facebook challenges and think, how many am I going to do of those? And then your birthday income. And I would probably look at that, and I would do, I normally do a high, medium, and low, right?
Yeah.
So you look at your first thing, and then you increase by 20% and decrease by 20% to get an idea. We had one client, Katrina, in the UK who actually they were raising about 1 million a year before they came and did Facebook fundraising, got it to 2 million a year. The pandemic happened. They cut their budget to 800,000. And then in the end, they did 3.5 million because of Facebook challenges.
Wow.
So the difference was massive for them. So we just did a presentation about that. So yeah, so I would model it out based on the birthday income plus Facebook challenges and see where it goes from there.
Very good.
All right, guys, we are 3 minutes over. I think it's a miracle. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.